So, thank you everybody for joining us today. It's nice and bright and early on the West Coast. It's a little dreary and dull on the East Coast, but later in the day. So, we're a little bit more awake out here. I'm Sherry Tucker. I'm the owner of Love the Way You Travel. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Kelly is our co-host today, as well as Jake. We're co-hosting today because Kelly and I are traveling with Quark Expeditions on a really amazing expedition to Svalbard in June. So we've invited our clients from both sides of the country to come together to hear a little bit about Quark Expeditions, about polar destinations, and learn a little bit about what Kelly and I are off to adventure about or to. And Kelly and I met years ago. Was it 2018, Kelly?
I
2019?
think so. Yeah.
Back then, on a trip to Africa when we actually were placed as roommates together, and we have been friends ever since. So it's really nice to get to do something with Kelly, even though she's on the other side of the country, but also to get to travel with her again. So Kelly, I will pass it over to you to introduce yourself a little bit.
Thanks, Sherry. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and have Jake present about Quark Expeditions. They're really an amazing company, and they do focus solely on the poles. So they're experts in Antarctica and the Arctic. And for those of you who don't know where Svalbard is, because I can never say that word, it is in the Arctic, and it's an archipelago.
I've got a
By
map. I've got a map.
What's
I'll
that?
show. I have a map on one of my slides. I'll show everyone where it is.
Sounds good. Awesome. Because yeah, it's up there, and we're going to be very close to we're going to be in the Arctic Circle and about 800 kilometers away from Santa. So I will let Jake from Quark Expeditions speak about the polar regions and let you learn all about these fabulous areas to travel to and explore.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. G'day, guys. Jake here. I hope everyone is okay with my accent. Unfortunately, there's no subtitles on today's presentation. If you do have any questions or say anything that you don't understand, just type it in the chat. Say, can you please repeat that or anything? I do have the tendency to talk quite quickly. That's just being an Aussie, though I am Canadian as of last week. So there we go. I'm probably going to be a little bit slower and have a lot of Canadian lingo, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I am also calling from Sun Peaks. I'm an avid skier, so hopefully my internet doesn't cut out as I'm busting out the door after this to go play in the mountains. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the amazing company that is Quark Expeditions, and why you should travel with us. The whole idea of Quark is to take people out in the middle of nowhere, far, far away, as Kelly was talking about, places that are close to Santa and down in the Antarctic, where a lot of people dream of just going and have the idea of going there one day, but they're just not sure how. And then they start researching about these destinations, and you find out that you actually can't do any of these places on your own. And really, the only way to get there is by an expedition company like Quark. We do the ends of the earth. Here's a photo of us here sailing through, or about to go into the Lamar Channel. This is actually from my expedition, I believe, down last March with my parents, and I'll have a few photos of that later just to show you that marketing photos. But the whole idea, again, what Quark is to get you off that beaten path, away from everyone else, and out into the wilderness. Polar bears and penguins. So if you're thinking of Quark, this is our two major mascots, polar bears, penguins. Please don't confuse the two where they live. I do get this question alarmingly way too many times. Polar bears are up north, penguins are down south. And if the two ever meet, we are in trouble. This is the two areas of operations within these two circles. So anything within that is what we do. And that is what we have been doing for over 35 years. So much so that we have become basically within the expedition industry, the people that are known of what we do very well in the polar regions, and why so many people out there in the expedition community themselves want to work for us. We're one of the only companies that actually has a wait list of staff wanting to come and work for us. And we have what we call a Polar Academy, which I'll talk more about, which is basically a boot camp for our expedition team. Well, actually, let's talk about it now. So the Polar Academy that we have is a very rigorous boot camp, as I said, where all of our expedition team members, we're the only company that does this, that you must pass before you can work for Quark Expeditions. Because we do have that wait list, we are able to do this, and we can pick the creme de creme, or whatever it is in French. I do not speak French, even though I had to do the national anthem in French last week. But the creme de la creme, or whatever you want to call it, they are the people that work for Quark. And these people are your entertainment. No, we have no Broadway shows, no casinos, none of that on board an expedition vessel. It is all about where we are and what we're going to see, but doing it with these people, most of which are marine biologists, historians, glaciologists, and penguinologists. If you didn't know that was a thing, Google it. It actually is. We have someone on board that just specializes in penguins, obviously down in Antarctica, not up in the Arctic. But the other thing with Quark, with our ratio of guest to guide, is it's the best in the industry. So our ships are very small, and what it allows us to do is have a ratio of 6-1 on most of our expeditions and 4-1 on certain others, like our Snow Hill expedition. So you will get to meet these people. You will have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. You'll be out in the field with them. And a lot of the scientists we're bringing on board too, which I'll talk about later on, are doing real world research with you as a guest that is actually helping your environment or going towards a university or whatever it might be. Now let's jump in and talk about our fleet. We have the World Explorer, all balcony, all suite, beautiful vessel, 172 guests. She is a ice-rated 1B vessel. Everything you'd expect from a big floating 5-star luxury hotel. The pool and the roof there, restaurants, rooms, the whole shebang. And then my favorite ship in the whole fleet is the Ultramarine. The reason she's my favorite, and she's only got 199 guests, and she was designed and built by Quark Expeditions. She's a PC6 ice rated, which means she's the next category down from an icebreaker. But the reason she's my favorite is that she has these big, beautiful, massive helicopters, Airbus H145. We have 2 of these on board, and allows us to take guests out and see the destinations from a completely different perspective, from the land, the sea, and obviously the air. On board, you can see, again, everything you'd expect from big floating 5-star luxury hotel, from big, beautiful suites and rooms. There's sauna, floor-to-ceiling windows all around the ship, so it doesn't matter. Even if you still are on board the vessel, you can still be in the environment that we're in and being able to take photos. So much so that I was sitting in the sauna in my last expedition, and a few orca whales came past. I ran out, got my camera. I'm sitting in a sweltering sauna, taking photos out of the window. So it doesn't matter where you are. Probably wasn't great for the camera, but my photos turned out fantastic. Then we have the Ocean Explorer. So the Ocean Explorer is a new ship to Quark. It's 138 guests and has this very unique X-bow design. So if you see here at the front of the ship, this is what we call the X-bow. And what that means is it will actually go through a wave instead of over a wave. So it makes it a little bit more stable in rough swell or rough seas. So if you are talking, the Drake Passage, for example, and you're a little bit worried about crossing the Drake and you don't want to skip it, which we do offer, where you can actually fly down, you can think about maybe jumping on the Ocean Explorer, as it will be a little bit more stable. Having that big X-bow allows us to have a big, beautiful atrium at the front with all natural light coming through. It's a really cool place to chill out, relax, just watch the world go by, or the whales circle the ship, or whatever is might happening. We've got the restaurants. We've got, again, big, massive rooms, lots of free-flowing light coming in, and saunas and all the rest of it. It's everything you'd expect. But one thing I want to talk about today is we are actually just announced last week or the week before the new ship we have, the World Voyager. So very similar to the first ship that I showed you, it is actually the sister ship. But we own the Ultramarine, and we lease the other 2. And the reason we do that is, first off, ships are very expensive. But the other thing is because we want to keep a very modern and up-to-date fleet. So her sister ship, the other ship we have, is getting a little bit older. It's built in 2019. So now we're phasing her out, and now we have the World Voyager, and that was built in 2020. So the whole idea is to keep the most modern possible fleet that we can, and we will be decking it out and making it all about Quark and everything else, and putting a science center on board, which I'll talk about in a bit. As I said, 168 guests, and we'll only be operating in Antarctica. But what makes Quark special and sets us apart from everyone else, as let's face it, the expedition industry is very, very noisy. But what we do that no one else does is we have more off-ship experiences than anyone else. So let's face it, places like Spitsbergen, or also known as Svalbard. If you can't say Svalbard, you can say Spitsbergen. It's basically the same place. Or Greenland or Iceland, even our own backyard, Canada and Antarctica. These are most of the time once in a lifetime experiences. Let's face it, not everyone's going to Antarctica twice. I'm very lucky I get to go there multiple times. I work for the company, they pay for it. Now, if you are going to go there and it happens to be, or one of those destinations I mentioned, and it's going to be probably, like I said, a once in a lifetime experience, why not do it with the operator that you can see and do more with? Now, I'm not saying you need to do all of these things. You might be seeing this guy on the stand-up paddleboard thinking, there's no way you're ever going to get me out on a stand-up paddleboard in the middle of Antarctica. That's fine. You don't have to do that. But the option is there. That's the big thing I'm trying to get across, is it's more about having the options to do these things, like the polar plunge. If you think coffee wakes you up, try the polar plunge in Spitsbergen or Svalbard. It's quite cold. It's very chilly, but yeah, you're awake pretty quickly. And we tie you onto a rope too. That's not so you float away. It's just we like to see if we can get bigger fish to come close. I'm just joking. Now, the tundra at a table. This is a very unique experience that we do, and I absolutely love this. We actually bring on Inuit chefs or First Nations chefs that will basically show their history through food. So it's a very small, intimate experience of 15 people. It's set in a private dining area, and the chef will actually cook food that they caught that day, or that they would get, or that they got from the local village that we just happened to be in. It's quite interesting. It's a very unique experience, and is something that it just, again, sets us apart from what other people are doing. So not only are we talking about off-ship experience, we're talking about on-ship experiences as well. Downhill mountain biking, if you're into mountain biking, sometimes we do this by helicopter where we fly you up, meet the bike, and let gravity do its thing. You don't need to be Lance Armstrongs of the world to do this. It's a very unique and awesome experience. You just hang on and go down a hill. But again, really fun and interesting experience. Now, Zodiac cruising. This is what's going to make up your expedition almost every single day. You will be in and out of these bad boys a lot. You'll become very familiar with the practice of getting in and out of Zodiac, hanging on, how they work. Where you want to sit is probably not necessarily at the front in case there's big waves, maybe somewhere in the middle or the back, but you will learn all of this once you get on board. But Zodiac is where you're going to spend a great deal of your time. Now, the bottom left, that is, sorry, I have something in front of me. Here we go. The bottom left is what we call our flight scene. So on the Ultramarine, as I mentioned, we have those 2 helicopters. That is an included activity when you book an expedition on the Ultramarine in all the destinations, but not in Spitsbergen or Svalbard. We do not use helicopters in that location for the sheer reason that it's full of polar bears, and we do not want to harm or inflict anything on a polar bear when it comes to anything, right? Whether it's being in the destination, having helicopter flyover, that is not the point of it. The whole idea of the helicopter is to get you up into the surrounding mountains and away from the ocean or away from the ground, not to chase polar bears. So we do not use them in that. The one you see here in the middle is a heli landing, as exactly as it sounds. We're landing the helicopter up in the mountains, and you get off and you go for a bit of a walk or a hike or whatever it might be. And then we have heli hiking as well. Exactly as it sounds, you are landing and going hiking from one point to another and meeting the helicopter in a different location. Really unique and fun experiences. We also have the ice sheet experience. This is in Greenland, where we'll actually take you up and land you on the 2nd largest ice sheet in the world. We give you the crampons on your feet. You'll actually go out with a glaciologist, and you'll walk along as you see a stream. The reason we pick streams is, for some reason, I don't know, I'm not a glaciologist, but that tends to be the most stable area that we can find, as water is actually running through it. So we will follow the stream and go for a really good hike along the world's largest ice sheet. Really fun and unique experience. Or Greenland camp experience. This is fantastic. This is where we're taking you up into the mountains of Greenland with a local Inuit host that lives from the area, and you're going out, setting up a tent, fishing for dinner, picking root vegetables for lunch, and actually camping out under the stars for a night. Again, really interesting and different experience there. Downhill mountain biking, I mentioned already. Let gravity do its thing and hang on. Heli landings, I'm just trying to provide more context here of what this is about. As you can see in the photo, the helicopter is going to land and you're going to get out, whether it's on ice, snow, or rocky outcrops, whatever it might have you, wherever we are. That is what a heli landing is all about. And the heli hike. Now, Canadians love hiking. It's a huge part of our culture and what we do. So, being able to do this, we are head office is in Toronto. Most of the people that work on board are Canadian. So this really does, resonate with Canadians and wanting to, go and see and experience these destinations by helicopter, and then going for a hike with a mountaineer, which is really cool. The last mountaineer I had was an ex-British SAS guy. That the stories he had of a nighttime were just fantastic. Like, we had so much fun with him. Now, let's talk about sustainability for a moment. sustainability is very important for Quark and everyone that works there. I'm very lucky that I've been in and around sustainable companies for most of my adult career, and you'll never see me work for other organizations that don't have this sort of sustainability practice or policies in place. The whole idea of sustainability with us is that we are going to these environments, but we're not leaving a trace. We're not leaving or having any negative impact on the destinations we're going to. More so, we're having a positive impact. And we actually counter that by bringing down scientists that are doing their research in those destinations. So rather than a scientist go down on a ship just for the sole reason of going down there and doing their research, they're going down with guests that we're taking down there to see and experience the destination, as well as educating you on what those scientists are doing, what is happening to the environment that we're in, and you will cut off this expedition with a newfound knowledge and understanding of why we do the things that we do, and why it's important that we protect the environment. The ships themselves, everything about this ship was built with sustainability in mind. There's a thing on board called the MAG system, and I love this. It's just very out of the box idea of thinking. It is literally burning our waste down and filtering it through a series of very fine particle filtration systems that actually releases that air back into the environment as clean as it was before it was burnt, basically. So that eliminates our waste by 95%, meaning that we're not turning up to small little Inuit villages up in, or even Longyearbyen in Svalbard and dropping off all of this waste like a massive cruise ship would. We can hang on to our waste much longer, and we can reduce it down by 95%. Even little things like the lights on board, or the heat from the engine being reused to heat the hot water in your shower. Like, everything is reused, recycled, no single-use plastics on board the entire ship whatsoever, and everything is clean diesel fuel as well. So everything you think about from a sustainability standpoint has gone into our vessels. Science and discovery. So the whole, as I mentioned a few times now, we bring scientists on board, but we are rolling out an actual proper science program come 2026 onwards, as well as we're building a science center on board the new ship World Voyager. So the whole idea of this is to, as I mentioned, bring guests into the realm of scientific discovery and research, educating everyone on why they're doing things that they're doing, but more so, you feel like you're in your own National Geographic's, sort of safari, I guess you could say. Like, you've got David Attenborough almost narrating your trip behind you. Like, everything that we are doing is, you are going to know that it isn't just a tourist attraction. It isn't a tourist thing that we're doing. Obviously, that pays the bills, and that is why we're in business. But we have a whole part of our company that's based on science and discovery, and we're trying to find more ways to incorporate that into our guests so that they can see and feel and be part of it from the moment the expedition starts, the moment it ends, and going out with the marine biologist and being in the Zodiac and have him like actually doing research and taking water samples, or counting whales, simple things, even changing the batteries in the cameras that look over some of the penguin colonies down there. You're there for the whole ride, and I'm really excited about this. And even though we do this now just sort of in a non-official capacity, now that we're actually having a program set in place that is going to be on every single expedition, but more so having the science lab too, which is going to be very interactive, and this is very new, so I don't have too much to share on it, but it's in collaboration with Happy Whale, the Polar Collective, the Finlandia Lab, and Penguin Watch. So we're working with these organizations to roll this out, and as more information becomes available, I will be sharing with everyone to be able to see what's happening. My favorite one is Happy Whale. It's basically everyone wants to take a photo of a whale, especially as their tails come up out of the water. If you didn't know, actually a whale's tail is like a fingerprint. So you can identify a whale just by the markings of their tail. And the Happy Whale database is, you upload the photos and it will scan the image, like using AI and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it will tell you who that whale is, what pod they're part of, where they were seen last, how old they are, if they've had calves and things like that. But more importantly, and I love this part, is if you get a photo of a whale's tail that isn't in the database, you actually get to name that whale for future reference. I've just got my first one. I went through my 18,000 photos I took in my last expedition, and I found one whale's tail that isn't in Happy Whale, and now there's going to be a Jake from Quark whale in that database, which I find pretty cool and interesting. The other thing we're rolling out is we're bringing these like hydrophone units on board our expedition Zodiacs. And this, I don't know if you can hear, if you have your sound up. Can you hear that? No. All right, didn't work. Technology. But basically, what I was showing there is we have recordings of a humpback whale talking to its calf, and like it's if you look at on our website and you look at a lot of our photos, you'll see there's whales right next to the zodiacs, or they're literally like underneath them. And I have some incredible footage of a mum and a baby swimming underneath, and the baby actually released all of its air, and the boat started moving, which was pretty cool. But now what we're doing is we're taking that experience to the next level by having these hydrophone units in the water so you can hear them talking to each other. Not only that, our marine biologists are using this information to be able to start getting recordings of certain behaviors that they're doing that hasn't been recorded before, and using that information to send to the universities across the world. So again, just adding to that scientific discovery that we're trying to achieve. So let's talk about the Arctic. Now, I'm going to talk about these destinations here. We have Canada, obviously, Greenland, Iceland, and Svalbard. We'll talk more about Svalbard in a second, but this is like sort of our route map and where we go and how we do a lot of our destinations and expeditions. You can see, well, obviously we have trips all around the place, but when you see these big boxes, now the reason we have these boxes is those places are very unique. There's lots of ice. There's very weather dependent. So we don't really know where we're going. And you'll see a lot of that with our itineraries, that we'll just have a big box basically saying we're somewhere here doing what we do. Now, that might be hard for a lot of people that do regular cruising, that at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, I have the Broadway show. At 8 o'clock on the Wednesday, I have dinner, whatever it might be, right? So that is not an expedition. You really need to be flexible, and you just need to go with the flow, so to speak, and understand that if we are sailing and it's in the middle of breakfast and something really cool is going on, or we hear of something that's happening, like for example, there might be a pod of orcas. Breakfast ends and we all get off the boat. That's an expedition, and that's why we do what we do and how we do it so well. And people love our product, is because we are so focused on the expedition side, not necessarily making sure you have a good breakfast. You are going to eat well. The food is incredible. You understand what I'm saying? But it is all about that expedition. And that's why, they hire people like me that are very informal and not professional. But let's talk about Svalbard. So Svalbard, if you're not sure where it is, how to say it, that's okay. It's part of Norway. You can just say Norway or Spitsbergen. It's next to Greenland, and it's an archipelago of Norway. So it's northern Norway. So if you look down here in this very little map here, you can see there's Norway, and then up there is Svalbard. And it's, as Kelly said, 800 kilometers from the North Pole. So it's pretty high up there, and very interesting place. There's one shopping center. It's the only place in the world you can live without a visa. That's because they need people to go there. And the other thing is, it's the home of the polar bear. So there's more polar bears than people up there, which is very fascinating, is why a lot of people go there. But if you're a bit of a bird nerd like me and you're obsessed with those things that fly over us every day, then this is where you want to go. There is a phenomenon that happens at certain times of the year, and that is when we go there, that all of these birds come, and all from different species, and then land on the cliffs, and they do this, and this is where they nest basically, and then they just disappear. Now, our competitors, unfortunately, a lot of them miss this phenomenon. They go there after this happened, and it's sort of a bit of a miss, because this is insane. Like, I've seen videos of what looks like cloud, but it's just full of birds. Like, this really has to be seen to believe. And if you are a bird person and you're obsessed with birds, this is honestly, like, let's use that French word again, the creme de la creme. This is where you want to go. This is honestly, they call it the Galapagos of the Arctic. You put it in perspective, if anyone has been to Galapagos. But obviously, home of the polar bear, that is the big draw card for most people. Reindeer, they only be found, this particular species can only be found in Svalbard, as well as walruses. A little fun fact, well, I don't know if it's fun. These guys, you will smell them before you see them. They absolutely reek. And we have a special, obviously you're all here today because Sherry and Kelly, they're actually going on this expedition, the one you can see here in the photo. So if you do want to join them, we have some special deals here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about their trip now, starting and finishing in Longyearbyen, and the trip actually starts in Helsinki. So you just need to get yourself to Helsinki. We take care of the rest. We throw in a pre-night and then the charter flight up to Longyearbyen, which you meet the ship. You'll head on down south and then up north, I'm not even going to try to pronounce any of those places we go to because I'm not Norwegian, but you get the idea, and that's why I like to use pictures. Now, this whole expedition is about the wildlife, taking advantage of the continuous daylight up there, going for hikes and walks along the tundra. As I said before, you're going to spend a lot of time in those zodiacs. There's a lot of options, as well as we have this kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding that you can do. So this is an incredible, amazing place. That photo, it looks like Antarctica. I've shown people that it's not. That is Svalbard, and that's what we're going to see up there, which is pretty interesting. It is on board the Ultramarine, which I said before is my favorite ship. This ship is everything you'd expect from an expedition. 199 guests on average. We're taking out 150 to 160 because obviously singles and solos and people booking cabins on their own and all the rest of it. So very, very small. You're going to meet everyone by day one. Every single person can get off the ship at the same time. If you have done an expedition before, or if you've started doing research on them, there are companies out there that have a lot bigger vessels, and you will spend 3 or 4 hours waiting until it's your turn to get off. Not with us. Every single person gets off this ship at the very same time. Very, very cool. Now, there are a lot of things changing in Spitsbergen. Now, what I mean by that is it's all about polar bears and regulations and all the rest of it. So the new regulations that came into effect on the 1st of January 2025, and I've included these slides for a reason, because I think when people start researching, they'll notice that there are all these new regulations, and I want to just talk about those now. So we have passenger limits, which is great. That doesn't affect us. We have no ship over 200 passengers. Landing restrictions. So before there was a lot of other places you could land, and now they've designated 43 landing sites within the protected areas, but there's still over 100 landing sites still accessible all around Svalbard, but there's very certain protected areas that you used to be able to go to now that they cut that back to just 43 particular sites within those areas. Not a big deal there. We sort of only really went to those major areas anyway. But the polar bear viewing, this is the one for those photographers or people that want to go up to there to get the photos of polar bears. This is the big impact, but it's not that big when you think about it. You just do probably now need to bring a bigger lens. So from March 1st to June 30th, you need to be 300 meters and 500 meters from March 1st to June 30th and 300 meters from July onwards. So 500 meters might seem like a big distance. What is tended to happen with our last summer is that we'll be sailing through somewhere and we'll see a polar bear and then we'll have to back up, or you'll be out in the Zodiac and you'll be quite close and then we have to back up. So we just have to make sure that we abide by these rules, and they are in place for a reason. Like, we do not want to have any effect negatively whatsoever on these guys. But why this matters is, as I said, it's crucial for the ecosystem, making sure that we're doing everything within our power to not have any undue stress or whatever it is on the bears up there. But see, I've included a whole bunch of photos here that were taken from a 500-meter distance, just to give you an idea that, yeah, sure, it might not be what you were thinking about 5 years ago, where you see some people almost patting them. Those days have well and truly gone, unfortunately, but that's what we have to do. And that's has a lot to do with over tourism. But now that they've put all these rules in with 200 passengers or less, a lot of companies out there, one of which is a Norwegian company that does expedition, they can't even go up there anymore. So this is huge. And the fact is that we have ships with less 200, and we have always had that. It goes to show that, we know what we're doing. Some more photos here, just to give an idea. So if any photographers out there, you probably want to bring a 400 to 600 mil lens. But the great thing with this particular trip, right now until the end of March, and we are currently, what's the date today? The 22nd. So we're running out of time. We have our triple bonus event. So within the cruise industry, it's what we call wave season. It always happens every year. It's probably the best deal you'll ever get. And right now, until the end of March, we have, I'll just move my screen so I can actually see. We have the 2,100 Canadian flight credit, which will give you towards your expedition. So that is to get you to Helsinki. We have the free charter flight and hotel package. So that will be the hotel in Helsinki. The next day, we charter an aircraft to fly you up to Longyearbyen in Spitsbergen or Svalbard. So that is now all included. And we're going to throw in some lounge passes as well. So yeah, just a little thing there to help. But this is a huge, huge deal, and it will finish on March 31st. So if you are thinking of wanting to go to any destination with Quark, more in particular with Kelly and Shari, now is the time to book. To give you an idea, I just took this screenshot this morning of our updated pricing to show you on this particular expedition. You can see that the regular price is what, for a veranda, 19,500, all the way down to now 13,900. So huge savings here for you guys. Deluxe veranda forward, 18,000 down to 13, and so on. You can read, but it's all there, and you can see all the ticks showing you the deals. We even have solo passenger discounts on top of this as well. So if you are a solo traveler and you're thinking, oh God, I don't want to have to pay that times two, we have some incredible deals there for solo. So please, honestly, guys, I can't stress enough. I've even thought about booking my own trip, as this is better than the staff discount that we get. So if you are thinking of Quark or you're thinking of expeditions with us, now's the time to look at these. Let's jump into Greenland. Now, just before I touch on Greenland, and I mentioned to Kelly and Shari before, I just wanted to touch on this, is there is a little bit of, I always find a way to not do this the right way. A few people are asking about Greenland and if it's safe to go to. Yes, 100% it's safe to go to. Like 2 million square miles, Greenland is huge, and 56,000 people live there. I live in Kelowna with 200,000 people there, and that's what I think is a small city. So imagine 56,000 people across a massive, massive country. Nothing is ever going to happen. And even if it did, you won't notice it. We aren't stopping in towns or cities. We're stopping in places that you can see right here where there's nothing. So even if something was to happen, you're not going to notice it, but nothing is going to happen. It's part of Denmark, and it has been for the last 800 years. So if you do have any concerns or questions about Greenland, I'd highly suggest reach out to Kelly or Shari, who can even bring me on the call, and we can have that discussion, which I've done in the last couple of days. But I just want to stress to you, please don't buy into the hype that you're seeing on TV. Is that good? We're good with Kelly and Shari. Did I say that correctly without offending anyone? We're good. Okay, great. All right. Now, the whole idea with Greenland is with us is to see it differently. So from the land, the sea, and the air. So what I love about this is if you are into the Northern Lights or stargazing, Greenland's where it's at, in my opinion, because there's, like I said, no cities, no people, no light pollution or anything like that. It's untouched. It's just full of World Heritage areas, UNESCO World Heritage sites, but just complete wilderness, like virgin forests and everything. It's just an absolutely amazing place. But more importantly, I love that we use the helicopters here, because in a lot of these destinations, there are no wildlife. So we can comfortably get out the helicopters and take you to massive cliffs up in the mountains. And my colleague Taylor did this last year, and he has a photo, and it looks like he hiked. It looks like Mount Everest. Like, let's face it, it's just this ridiculous mountain. And everyone says, "Oh wow, how long did that hike take?" It's like, "Oh, about 2 minutes by helicopter." So like, we are getting you into some incredible destinations. As I said, you don't need to be Lance Armstrong of the world to travel with us, but we do have some very adventurous options. But more importantly, these helicopters will allow you to see. I had a 92-year-old on my trip in Antarctica, and all she wanted to do was see Antarctica. And we did that twice. She did 2 helicopter rides, and she got to see more than she ever visioned. And she still talks about it to this day. Apparently, I keep in touch with her granddaughter. Canadian Arctic. Now, being Canadian as of last week, I can't wait to do this. This is high on my bucket list. I want to go up there. The best way it's been described to me is it's like visiting a different planet. It's just so different from one point to the other. And we have this particular place in Canada, you may or may not know about it, called the Torngat National Park. This is the pinnacle when it comes to expeditions, in my opinion, as it has everything. And it's the only place in the world you can see black bears and polar bears in the one location. So it's really, really unique and different. And we explore this by every single toy that we have, from the kayaks to the stand-up paddle boards to even the helicopters we'll get out here in certain areas. Obviously, again, taking into factor the wildlife. But the Torngat, if you haven't, please jump on Google, just type in Torngat National Park and see for yourself. This is incredible, and we don't go there that often. But for me and for all my colleagues, the big highlight for Canada is its people, like visiting the Inuit and going out and experiencing their culture, and having them open their doors to their houses and say, "Come on in, come in for a beer." Like, it is very, very unique, especially when you get off in a destination with just 138 passengers on our smallest vessel, the Ocean Explorer. That isn't a lot of people. So like, these communities, they're not blowing up like you would see in the Caribbean when a 5,000 passenger cruise ship pulls in and everyone drops off and just overwhelms the town. That is not happening with us. We're doing it very respectfully, so much so that we reach out to these guys a lot, and we check in to make sure it's still okay. We don't want to turn up to a village of 50 people that is going through mourning, or someone might have passed away or something like that. We don't want to be disrespectful, so we keep in constant contact with these communities, and we do everything right by them. And we want you to go and spend money in these towns. A lot of these people will sell little knickknacks and things like that they've made themselves. We encourage you, go out there, spend your money, have a good time, learn about their culture, and we will do it very respectfully. Walking in and around, like, some of these places just don't seem real, but like, can you imagine living up here in -40 for 6 months of the year? Like, I just can't picture that. But these are the people that do it, and like learning their way of life, that is what it's all about. Again, not going to try to pronounce that town. Moving on, polar bears. As I said, this is again another destination. You can see polar bears from afar. This is taken from 500-meter distance, though we do not have to adhere to those rules in Canada, though we do obviously want to make sure that we're respectful of the wildlife as well. But if you are, again, a little bit concerned about what I mentioned before with those new regulations, they're not as enforced in Canada, but you're not as prominent as you will see polar bears in Spitsbergen. So it's just the happy medium or the risk you take. I threw this in literally 5 seconds before I jumped on the call this morning, because we just rolled out some last-minute savings, so up to 50% on Arctic voyages. And what is that? Sorry, excuse me. As soon as I get to altitude, my lungs hate me. Again, I'm at some peaks. Now, what's really cool is with these last-minute savings, they're on top of our triple bonus event, which I mentioned earlier. And here is some of the savings. This was an internal memo. Probably not supposed to share it, but whatever. It shows all of the expeditions we currently have, the days, the current in-market offers that we had, and then what they've been up to. So you can see, for example, in the middle here, this particular trip, best of Arctic Norway, went from 50 to 30%. So massive deal, just went through the roof. You can see we've also got some here at 40%, and there are a couple of sneaky others that are coming out to up to 50. So there's some incredible deals to have, guys. Kelly, Shari, please screenshot this, or I can send it to you after. This is what is going to sell, and especially between now and the end of March, with massive deals, as well as flight credit, pre-hotel and charter flight included, and those lounge passes. You're not going to get a better deal at Quark, hand on heart, than you are between now and the end of March. Let's talk about Antarctica. Now, Antarctica, we do obviously the peninsula, the Falklands, South Georgia. If you're not sure what that big fluff ball there is, that is a king penguin, a little baby one. They get very fluffy when they're babies, and then they lose all of their baby fur, and they come out looking a little bit better. Patagonia, I'll talk about that in a second, and Snow Hill. Snow Hill is incredible, and I'm going to really dive into Snow Hill in a minute. Here's our little, as you can see, voyage map, I guess you could say. Stanley Falklands is up there. Over here, South Georgia. Snow Hill is on the other side of the peninsula. I want you to keep that in mind when I talk about it. And then we have, obviously, our crossing the Antarctic Circle, as well as our Patagonia expedition. So a little something for everyone. Now, if you haven't been to Antarctica, or you're starting to think about maybe going to Antarctica, it's getting crowded down there. I'm not going to lie to you. There is nearly every other company out there now trying to do expeditions to Antarctica. If you see a company like Princess, Celebrity, Royal Caribbean selling Antarctica, it is not Antarctica. I really annoys me this. If any ship 500 passengers or more cannot physically stop in Antarctica, it's a little hard to see a 3-foot penguin from your 15th story balcony. So when you are going to see these incredible, like $1,500, $2,000 offers to Antarctica with those larger companies, just be mindful that that isn't an expedition. That is for a different market. And I love that we have multiple different markets and different things for people. Everyone travels differently, but it is not an expedition to Antarctica like how we do it. You will not be stepping foot on Antarctica. And in my mind, you cannot claim that you even went there. It's like going to the airport and, Dubai and saying you went to Dubai. Not the same thing. Now, we have rolled out a new expedition here. It's called Antarctica Marine Mammals. Now, I love this. That's actually one of the photos I took with my new fancy camera. I'm pretty proud of that one. A little crab-eater seal that just finished having lunch. But what I love about this particular trip, and I'm obsessed with marine mammals, like insanely obsessed. What I love that we're now doing is we're bringing on very big world-renowned scientists on certain expeditions that are focused on a particular aspect. Obviously, this one is marine mammals. So we're bringing on Ari Finlandia, who created the Finlandia Lab and has been researching whales since 1997. He will be on board, as well as a research associate from Happy Whale. Remember Happy Whale? I mentioned about the whale's tail. So this entire expedition is focused just on marine mammals, and we'll have these two guys on board doing their actual research. So you will go out with them in the Zodiac while they're doing everything that they do. I'm not a scientist. I can't speak to what they do and all the fancy words. But as you understand what I'm getting at, to be on board with these guys, have breakfast with them, have lunch, go out in the Zodiacs with them, and then have dinner and sit in the auditorium and learn from them where they're doing lectures and things. This is just going to be next level when it comes to expedition cruising and having really cool, fancy people on board. Some more photos I've thrown in here just so you can get the idea of what to see. As I mentioned before, you're going to spend a lot of time in these Zodiacs out cruising around, exploring. And then if you're that way inclined, you can do the stand-up paddleboarding. I have one of these things. I live on Lake Okanagan. I cannot stand up for the life of me. I won't do this because the water's cold, but if you feel like you can do it, go for it. And then the choppers. Now, being a bit of an aviation enthusiast myself, I love this, but seeing Antarctica from the air, I'd been down there 3 times prior before I got to see it from the air, and I felt like I knew how big it was. But once you get in that helicopter and you fly above, and you just, all you can see for as far as the eye will let you is ice. It is just mind-blowing. Antarctica by helicopter. And that leads me to this. So now we've just rolled out a couple of new expeditions that is focused on seeing Antarctica by the helicopter. This is the one in particular that I love. As I said, it's on the other side of the peninsula, and it is cruising above a place called Snow Hill. So this will be in Johnville Island and James Ross Islands, and is focusing again on getting to those destinations what you can only accessible by helicopter. Really, really unique and cool itinerary, and is included in our wave season offers too. So there's some amazing deals to have there. Now, should I sail or should I skip the Drake? Now, the Drake is notoriously known as the Drake Lake or the Drake Shake. It is a very interesting place. I still have a wristband on from March last year when I crossed the Drake, but I was drinking and I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't hanging on, so I fell over. But what I'm getting at, it can be very interesting. It is notorious, right? As I said. So if you don't want to cross the Drake, you do not have to. We actually allow you to fly down to King George Island, where you can meet the ship and cruise on down and see the Antarctica Peninsula from the vessel in Antarctica, and then fly back, or cruise down, fly back, cruise up, fly down. So you can do it vice versa. So you can say you've done the Drake at least once. Personally, I think crossing the Drake at least once would be the way to go. Before you do go to Antarctica, I'd highly suggest reading the book by Ernest Shackleton called Endurance, and all about him and the struggles and everything that they went through. They actually found that vessel a couple of years ago now, which is pretty interesting in Antarctica. But reading that and getting an idea of how they did it, and then crossing it in a fancy vessel that we have, it's just mind-blowing to think, wow, like that was proper expeditions back then. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, or if you are worried about the Drake, you can fly down. So we have, as I said, fly down, cruise back, cruise down, fly back. So there's just one of the itineraries there that does the. And the other thing is also what's great about these itineraries, they tend to be around 7, 10 days, which is not that much when you think about it. When obviously our bigger ones tend to be 12, 14-day itineraries, because we do need those that time to get down to Antarctica. So if you don't want to take off too much time off work or whatever it might be, you can skip the Drake and go down. South Georgia, the king penguins. This is incredible. These guys are amazing. They're fantastic. The photo, again, for those bird nerds out there. You also see lots of seals and things like that, but this is why people go. There's over 200,000 king penguins in this photo. I'll let you count them if you want to, but yeah, you can see this is the type of thing you're going to see and experience down with us. Leopard seals, they're one of my favorite. Last expedition, one of these guys came up and actually bit onto the Zodiac. We got out of there pretty quickly, as it was a large 1,000-pound female that didn't want us there, so we left. We got out of her area, but having that experience was just incredible. This is the expedition I would probably be looking at doing. If you are looking at Antarctica, and again, saying you're probably going to do it just once in your lifetime, Ushuaia, Stanley, South Georgia, down to the peninsula, and crossing the Antarctic Circle, finishing back in Ushuaia for your charter flight back to Buenos Aires. 23 days long, and it's bookable through to 24, 25. And I think we just announced 26, 27 for this particular itinerary recently as well. I haven't included that slide, but yeah, this is probably the pinnacle, or the creme de creme. That's my new word these days, for you wanting to go. Patagonia. Let's talk about Patagonia. This is an incredible destination that most people do by land, but you can do it by expedition vessel. This is the itinerary that we put forward, and this was a brand new itinerary to Quark that we did last year, and this is what we had planned to do. This is what we ended up doing. If you look between these two, it is a little bit different. And what I mean by it's different, as that what we have is we bought this thing here called the Wasp. Now, the Wasp is a sonar that attaches to the back of a Zodiac, as shown here, like an engine. And the Zodiac sails out in front of the Ultramarine, and it maps the sea floor. The reason we had to get this is a lot of these little inlets and fjords and things here were uncharted, no charters whatsoever. So we were the first company to take a vessel of its size into Patagonia, into a lot of these fjords. So we had to charter them ourselves and map the sea floor. We now have that information for our next expedition coming up at the end of this year. So we'll have a little bit more information on to where we go and what we can do. And we might even go down some other fjords that we didn't get the chance to do and map those. But we now have this system, and it does allow us to literally go into uncharted waters, which is what an adventure and an expedition is all about. Snow Hill. That is not a king penguin. That is an emperor penguin, the largest penguin in the world. And those little fluff balls behind it are their babies, just like the kings, but these guys are white. They get really fluffy. It's really cool and cute to see. And they then molt, lose their baby fur, and go out for the winter and spend it at sea, which is pretty cool. Now, this is Snow Hill, down the bottom here. So that helicopter expedition I showed you about, that is up here, Jonahville Island. Excuse me, and James Ross. But Snow Hill is down here. Now, in 2003, we discovered the emperor penguin colony there. And the following year, we took the BBC film crew to Snow Hill, and we filmed March of the Penguins, which is on Netflix. That was all done through Quark Expeditions, which I find fascinating. I love that movie. And since then, we've been doing expeditions to Snow Hill. Now, the difference is, the best time to go, November to December. But the best thing about Snow Hill is that not everyone can get there, because surrounding Snow Hill is lots and lots of very thick sea ice. So what we do is we get the Ultramarine as close as we possibly can, and then we ferry everyone in by helicopter, landing on a helipad that looks like that, and then hiking about 1.5 kilometers over to the emperor penguin colony to spend a few hours with them. This is the #1 expedition that every single one of my colleagues wants to do. My colleague Laura, who lives in Toronto, has actually done this. She's worked for Quark much longer than I have, and she was very lucky to go and do this a few years ago. It's the creme de la creme. There's that word again. That is an absolutely amazing expedition, guys. Honestly, this is pushing adventure to its limits and taking you to the ends of the earth to see the biggest emperor, the biggest penguin in the world, the emperor penguin. I've been in Antarctica a whole bunch of times. I've never seen an emperor penguin in my life. This is probably one of the only places you can get to. If you're very lucky, you might get to see them on other places if one randomly just pops up. But this is where the colony is and where they live. Cute little guys, fluffy, as I mentioned. I just got a few photos here to give you a little bit more of an idea of what the expedition is about and how close you're going to get to these guys. You're going to, and they're massive. They are, as I said, the biggest penguin in the world. They're like little dudes with attitudes. That is the best way to describe them. Like, they just sit there and like, what do you want? What are you doing here? Please go away. You're a strange looking penguin. But honestly, like, the photos just doesn't do it justice. Take your full 500 millimeter lens and get real up close photos with these, and your friends will be very, very envious. So that's it for me, guys. I hope that is a really good idea of what we're about and how we do expeditions. You can see Sherry and Kelly's information there. So depending if you live on the east or the west, please take that email down. Reach out to them if you have any questions or if you want to learn a little bit more. I'm even happy to jump on a personal one-on-one call with anyone that wants a little bit of one-on-one time. Sherry and Kelly, I'm happy to do that if you want to organize that with anyone. I find that everyone sometimes doesn't want to ask questions in front of a group, and they might have some things they want to ask. Roger, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I've been thinking about going to Svalbard for quite some time. I know you don't guarantee to see polar bears, but do you have any, tell me anything about the likelihood of seeing them?
We'll never use the word guarantee in expeditions. I
I know,
feel like in
I,
this,
I understand that. I fully
yeah. No, what I
understand.
was going to say, Roger, is I feel like in this instance I almost can, but I won't, just to cover myself. The reason I say that you almost can is when you are going to Spitsbergen and Svalbard, as there are more polar bears than people, and it's just like literally it's called home of the polar bear. Nearly every expedition that I know of has seen them. Obviously, there's that slight chance that you may or may not to, and because they're animals or whatever it might be, or depending on the year and the sea ice. The sea ice has a lot to do with polar bear viewing because it will restrict us in getting to certain areas. But you do tend to spot polar bears most when they are on the sea ice, when they're out fishing and things like that, when they're out hunting, because they don't. What do bears do here? They go into hibernation. Polar bears don't do that. And the reason for it is they actually do all their hunting in winter because it's easier on the ice to catch animals than it is when it melts. So I find that pretty fascinating. So the ones that you will see in summer, they're trying to catch or trying to get out on the ice, whatever's left, and it will be very dependent on the year. So if there's still a lot of ice, chances are higher. If there's not much ice, it's a little bit harder to see them on the land. But you never really know. But as I said, it's almost a guarantee. But I'll never say that. Does
So
that answer your question there, Roger?
the best time to go would be around about May, would it?
Yeah, around there. Yeah, earlier is what I prefer. May, June, yeah, even into July. Like May, June is the best time. Yeah.
Thank you.
You don't start the Svalbard itineraries until May anyway, do you?
Yeah, we don't do it because, as I said, like usually the sea ice is too thick too earlier in the season, as well as our ships need to make their way up from Antarctica. So yeah, May, June, and then as the ships, we tend to move them because we also want to be there during that bird phenomenon that I mentioned before of all the birds coming and nesting. So as that sort of finishes, we then start repositioning our ships to head over to Greenland, and then we move them over to Canada.
Very good. If anybody else has any questions and you want to put them in the chat box, you can feel free to do so. I just wanted to share a quick story because Jake was talking about a lot of the staff being Canadian. I sent a client to Antarctica with Quark. I mean, it was before COVID, probably 2018, I would say. And when she arrived, she knew one of the expedition crew. She didn't know she was going to know one of the expedition crew, but they had met at university many, many years ago. And as they got talking, I came up and it
Yeah.
came to find out that I had actually gone to high school with him. So somebody from my little tiny hometown in Florenceville, New Brunswick, is actually an expedition guide with Quark and spends basically all of his winters in
Yeah.
Antarctica. Yeah.
So
Oh,
well, I have some slides that I put together recently, and I hadn't finished them, and I didn't use them today. But I basically have a big slide that says support Canadian, and then my next three slides after that, I've jumped on our website and I've grabbed all the photos of our expedition team members that live in Canada. And the reason I hadn't finished it is because I didn't realize that like nearly 80% of our team are Canadians, and the ones that aren't. Some of them are Australian, some are just US and all around the world, but majority of them are Canadian because Quark is head office in Toronto. So when I was on there, we had people from Haida, two guides actually from Haida, a whole bunch from BC, a whole bunch from Alberta, and then up in the Maritimes, and it's because they grow up in and around these environments that are similar to where we go, right? So like for example, our two guys from Haida, they're an actual couple, Abby and I've forgotten his name. John, and they grew up in Haida, in and around bears, with marine life, seals, and their natural progression in life was to become an expedition team member. And who do they want to work for? They want to work for us. They literally have the pick of a million different companies to choose from, but they chose us because we only do polar regions, and that's what they love, and that's where they want to be, and that's where they live. And for me, like that's why I left a company that did the whole world and came to Quark, because I'm obsessed, and so is the company, with the polar regions. So I really can't stress enough to everyone that if you are wanting to see and do these destinations, do it with the experts. And that is who we are, and that's what we do. And that's why we have our expedition team members from the places that they grew up in.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have a quick question. I know some of my clients that are on the call are particularly interested in food. And when you were talking about tundra to table, is that on
Mm-hmm.
all of the ships?
No, it's just on the ultramarine, I believe. I'd have
Only.
to double check, but because we rolled out that new ship, the Ocean Explorer, and I don't know if we're doing Tundra to Table on that yet. I would have to double check online and get back to you. But the great thing is it's an on offer, and hopefully we'll have it on the vessels. But I'll check that later. Now with food, to be quite honest with you, Sherry, I'm not a big foodie, so I don't talk too much about things that I'm not passionate about. I find that when a rep talks about something they don't necessarily care about, that doesn't come across right. So I focus on the things that I like and the reasons I work for Quark and what I think Quark does really well. But honestly, the people, and I took my parents, and they're obsessed with food, right? And their comments about the food, and they've done every trip under the sun. We are. I wouldn't say we're like some companies that just focus on food and Michelin star. No, that's not what we're about. Like we're very informal dining. So I wore shorts and flip flops every day to the dining room, and like that's acceptable. But with our food, like you are going to have your lobster, you're going to have your steak, you're going to have, all of the different vegetarian options are available and vegan. You got all of the food and options that you expect from a 5-star luxury hotel. That's the best way I can describe it. But if you want like golden chandeliers, butlers, and all of that, that's not Quark. You're probably better off on a different company that does that and focuses on that. But if you're wanting to eat right, eat well, and see everything, that's what Quark does.
And they really do feed you really good breakfast, just to be clear.
Yeah. Well, you're going to need it. Everything I just showed you. Yeah, you're in for a long day. So, we feed you well in the morning. That's for sure.
Very good. I don't see any questions coming in. Kelly, do you have any questions?
I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about photography, because with expedition cruises, photography is a big part of it. And you're talking about what lenses to bring and that kind of thing. Could you just touch on that a little bit more, Jake, before we go?
Yeah, of course. So we have professional photographers and videographers on board. The whole idea of the videographer is to put together a video at the end of the expedition that will send to everyone. So you will watch it on the last night and you will get a copy of it. It's always very emotional. Everyone's crying and having a good time and laughing and all the rest of it. But with the photographer, now I think my wife isn't here. She can't hear me. I went to London Drugs before my expedition and spent $5,000 on a big, massive lens. And I'm like, I'm going to Antarctica again. I want the camera. I had no idea how to use it. Honestly, I was on auto mode and I'm like, well, this is a waste. Like I spent $5,000 and no idea how to use this thing. It looks cool. I got the camouflage thing and great, whatever. But after 2 days crossing the Drake Passage, spending it with a Nat Geo wildlife photographer who just finished filming up in the Arctic, and I shit you not, sorry, excuse my French, I'm Australian. I kid you not. I watched a documentary on Netflix a couple of weeks ago, and he was in the thing, which was just phenomenal. His name's Mark. I can't remember what the documentary was. It was something up north. Spending 2 days with him, crossing the Drake Passage, and having him show me how to use these cameras. That's why I showed you the photo I had of the crab eater seal. Like, I would have never been able to get those photos. And Kelly, I've shown you some of the photos that I've taken down there. Like, you do spend a great deal of time, if you want to, with these people in the lecture room. Like, he hosted 2 lectures on the way down, and he hosted 1 or 2 lectures during the expedition there, showing how to take photos properly. Like, for example, on the way down, he showed us all the buttons and everything on your camera. And then when we got down there, he was in my Zodiac with me, and he was like, "Oh, you need to get at this height. You need to get lower," or whatever it was. Like, he was actually explaining to me. So by the end of 2 weeks spending with this guy, I feel confident enough to now go out on another expedition and do it all on my own. So you will be, I'm not going to say a professional by the end of it, but you'll be very confident on how, 1, to use your personal camera, and 2, how to take photos of all the different things. For me, it was birds. I had no idea how to take a photo of a bird. That always turned out grainy. They were too quick. But I have one that looks like it literally stopped in time. And that's just because of the photographer that was on board and the caliber of the people we bring with us.
And that's
amazing.
Just to be clear, there are photographers on board on all of the ships, on all of
every single one. Yeah, that is a massive component.
Special.
What's that?
Not just the Jake special.
Not just the Jake special, no. But no, that's it. That's a huge component of our expeditions. Is obviously, a lot of people that are spending the money to do these expeditions, they want to remember it and they want to get the photos that they know they can get, or they've done an Africa safari, they've loved it, the photos are amazing, and now they're like, I'm going to go to Antarctica, I'm going to get those same photos, but of like seals and penguins. So, we understand that from a company that, that's a massive portion of why people do this. So we want to make sure that they know that getting on board, they're going to have the assistance, as well as even in the shop. Like, we have a shop on board. Who would have thought? But if you happen to need anything to do with the camera, it's for sale on there as well. SD cards. I had to buy 4 others just to keep up 18,000 photos and a whole bunch of video. Like I bought 4 more SD cards just so I could have the space to do it. But yeah, again, like it comes down to what you're interested in. We have something for everyone, whether it's just relaxing, chilling out, going for a hike, whether you're in your 80s and 90s and you just want to spend time in the helicopters, maybe do a Zodiac ride every day, or you want to do everything possibly you can. It's what we do. It's why we have almost every ship going out these days full, especially in Antarctica. Arctic's a little harder to sell, and the reason for that is not as popular as Antarctica. It will get there, but people are more inclined to want to do Antarctica right now than it is the Arctic. So take advantage of what you can before it gets too busy, is what I say.
Kelly, are you going to do the polar plunge with me?
I am.
Oh, good.
I am, but I better be pulled back in and not be bait.
But how we do the polar plunge is very unique to Quark. We a lot of other companies I've worked for in the past, you actually walk off land into the ice. We throw you off the back of the ship. Because we found that when people would walk halfway in, they'd turn around and walk out. So if you throw it off the back of the ship, but the day they do it, they'll wake you up in the morning. They'll have bells, whistles, pom-poms. All of the team are going crazy. They've got vodka bottles everywhere for when you get back on board. They give you a vodka shot. They give you a little certificate saying you survived the polar plunge. But they turn it into a fun, energetic show. And when they come over the loudspeaker and it's everyone shouting and yelling and screaming, and you know you're in for a fun day. And then you have breakfast. So it's just like, it's a great way to start the day, and it's fun and it's entertaining, and it really brings everyone together, and particularly the crew with you. So that day you usually you do the polar plunge, you go out, you'll do the activities and stuff during the day, but that night, because everyone's having a good time and having a lot of fun, you will usually end up in the amphitheater or in the lecture room doing a fun entertainment event or whatever it might be. Drinks are flowing, everyone's having a good time. So there is obviously the expedition component there as well, but we also want to make sure this is a vacation. You want to have fun, you want to have a good time, and we try to incorporate that aspect as much as we can.
Can we have the vodka shot first?
I'm sure you can.
Well, you can have mine.
Excuse me. Yeah, but guys, honestly, please ask any questions you have. There's still a lot of people on here. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Anything?
I think we've got
Jake's off skiing pretty soon, so take advantage of him.
Yeah, I'm going straight out the mountain. So if that's it, I'm going to go skiing. Any questions, guys?
No, I don't think there's any questions coming in, Jake. We really appreciate.
I have one.
Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah, Beth.
What
do you got?
Find the mute button was hard. How many days or how many hours does it take to cross the Drake Passage on the ship?
No, that's a good question. Luckily enough, I've done it more than enough times to tell you that it's never really the same. Again, it really depended on the Drake Lake or the Drake Shake. Years ago, I did it with a different company in 2015, and very small ship, 130 passengers, like what we've got. A very older ship. It used to be an old ferry that was converted, and because it didn't have all of that stuff, it did take the 2 full days because it was quite a large swell. But when I did it last March, we actually crossed it in a day and a half, and the afternoon on the second day, we were doing landings in King George Island. Elephant Island. So hit and miss, to be honest with you there, Beth, but I would give yourself 2 days just to be safe.
Wow, thank you. It looks
long. It looks like a long time on a map, that's for sure. But when you're steaming at 16 knots full ahead, you get there pretty quick, especially as you're traveling through the night as well.
Oh, thank you.
Cool.
Anyone else? We've got silence.
Awesome.
We're probably good. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake, for spending your Saturday morning with us instead of on the ski hill, but go put your ski pants on and get out there.
I will. I'm out the door. See you guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for having me. And as I said, if anyone does have any questions later on, just reach out. Or if they wanted to have a one-on-one chat, I'm more than happy to do that too, because I know there's probably a lot of people out there that aren't too sure on expeditions, and they maybe have a few things, or they think of questions later on. I'm always here to help.
Perfect.
And feel free to reach out to Sherry and I as well. We can we can field some questions as well and reach out to Jake too and set up those one-on-ones. Thanks so much for
Awesome.
joining us, and thank you, Jake.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Have a good one.
Have a good weekend.